Welcome to the Inside Carolina Postgame. I'm Tommy Ashley. We are always sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt. That is Sherrell, McMillan. We're going to find out who's the faithful ones. It's 11:15 or so on the East Coast. Carolina beats Central by a lot, 97-53. Sherrell, I'll say a little bit of fretting early when the game was a little bit close, but basketball games are long, and Carolina just continued to lean on Central all game, ends up winning by 44. Your overall thought before we dig into the usual portion of the show?
Well, it's hard to be upset over a 44-point win, but, we're here to nitpick because this team has goals. Hubert Davis always said the goal is to, win the ACC regular season and win the ACC tournament and then get to the Final Four and win the championship. Those are the goals for Carolina basketball as prescribed by the head coach every year. So I think we should hold them to that and judge them, accordingly. And that first half just was not good. I mean, frankly, there was a lot that he could have done better. The turnovers, miscues. So I think that stuff has to get cleaned up. And you wonder, Tommy, I'm curious your opinion about this. Like, are they becoming a team that kind of lollygags in the first half and then surges in the second? Is it this team? Is that a Hubert Davis thing? Because we've seen it happen a ton over the years. And I thought, granted, we have a small sample, but I thought because of guys like Caleb Wilson, who are their motor always runs high, that it wouldn't be as much of an issue this year. And maybe it's not, but it does seem like they get off to some slow starts and then pick it up as things go on.
To your point, it kind of flipped because last year, they were a second half team where they would get way behind in the first. Well, same thing, way behind in the first half, and then come back late. But today, what if I told you, Sherrell, that Carolina had 10 turnovers in the first half and none in the second half? Would that surprise you?
That's pretty much what the Kansas game. They had 10 in the first half and 1 in the second half. So, I think that is something that the coaching staff should probably look at. Again, 4 games is not a huge sample, but it is a trend. So that's concerning. But aside from that, I think the rest of everything is pretty positive. They did what you would expect them to do against, as Roy Williams would say, a team that just didn't have the talent that they have. Veesaar and Wilson continue to impress. I'm telling you, I don't know of a team that's got a better 5 and 4 than Carolina has right now. Obviously, Veesaar, there's still things he's got to improve on, but the questions coming into the season for him were like, can he play 30, 35 minutes a game? Well, he's checked that off. Can he rebound? Can he be physical? Well, he's gotten double doubles twice this year, I think. Already been over 8 rebounds in 3, or it might be every game. No, he had 7 that one game. So been in 8 or more rebounds, which are career highs in 3 of Carolina's 4 games this year. And then Wilson, he's had consecutive double doubles, and he's been at 20 points in all but 1 game. So they are dominating and doing what they're supposed to do. So those are good signs if you're Carolina, and you take a 44-point win, move on, and get ready for Navy.
Yeah, to talk about Veesaar and their folks in the chat, almost 300 in the chat. Let's get it up there at a late night on a Friday night. Veesaar and Wilson, to your point, Sherrell, combined 33 and 24. You'll take that every night from those 2 guys combined. I was surprised to hear that Veesaar stat. Maybe I just hadn't paid attention that he had never had more than 8 rebounds in a game, but he has 11 tonight. So, he's showing the ability to get on the boards. Carolina shoots 55% overall. Go ahead.
I was going to say the thing with Veesaar is, people, because they saw the second half of his season at Arizona and assumed that's what he did the whole year, but he didn't play a ton. He played mostly because of injury in the second half of the season. So he's still somebody who's finding himself, who he is, and the things he can do well on the basketball court. So I think that should be considered as well, because he hadn't shown it before, because he, frankly, didn't play a ton at Arizona. And now at Carolina, where he is the unquestioned guy at center, there's no doubt about it. You're seeing the numbers he can put up.
Yeah, and I love seeing the shooting from Wilson and Veesaar. They're 4 for 5 for Veesaar, 7 for 8 for Wilson, and then 4 for 6 and 6 for 8 from 3 point, from free throws. And so you're going to score a lot of points if you make your free throws in the ACC, especially, and they're both doing that. One of my favorite moments, or the way I like to see, and Caleb Wilson does it, and we're fixing to have that portion of the show, but Veesaar runs the court, gets to the front of the rim, gets a follow dunk. You score a ton of points in North Carolina's offense over all time, and even in Hubert Davis's, anybody's offense really, if you sprint to the front of the rim. And he was able to do that a couple times tonight. He keeps that up. He's going to be a difficult handle for most everybody that he'll play this year. Let's do it, Sherrell. Let's go to the Caleb Wilson portion of the program. We said we'd have this every year, and we're going to do it, or every game, and it appears that we're going to do it. Wilson has like 17 in the first half, finishes with 21 and 13, 3 assists, only 1 turnover. I think he had 4 blocks. It's North Carolina Central. It's a game that you win by 44 points, but he came out hot. He came out on fire like he has, and he was tough to deal with and continues to be the man for Carolina.
Well, let me ask you a question. What did he do, if anything, that seemed forced in this game?
Punched. I mean, that's about it. I mean, everything else, like I said before, you watched him a lot more in high school and on the circuit than I did. He is fluid and as smooth and then violent at the rim as anybody I've seen at that age. I mean, he's pretty much got the whole package, and then he's got, when he's taking them, a feathery jump shot. I mean, he's as good a freshman as Carolina's had in a long time, 4 games into the season.
Yeah, and there's nothing he does. Excuse me. There's nothing he does that is rushed, that is frenetic, that looks out of place. I can think of maybe 1 or 2 possessions, even dating back to the exhibition games, where you're like, yeah, maybe he shouldn't have taken that shot. But in the regular season, I really can't think of one where he did something out of the flow of the offense or something kind of freestyling, just trying to get his own. He is very good at staying within the confines of the offense and then doing his thing within that structure. There hasn't been a bunch of freestyling or shots that you wouldn't expect. So I think that's number one, because as a freshman, that's the hardest thing to learn, right? Is like, when do I do my own thing? When do I do what coach asks? How do I play but not think too hard? All that good stuff. And he's thinking and he's playing hard, and it's all flowing naturally. So that, to me, that's the most impressive thing, is that, he hasn't looked rushed or anything like that this entire season. And that's just something you don't expect from a freshman. So, I don't know what we'll say on Tuesday, or what Rob will say on Tuesday about Caleb during the portion of the program. But for this one, for me, that's what it is. It's just he's so in control pretty much at all times.
Yeah, the only beef, and somebody mentioned in the chats, he's got to be careful swatting at some of the shots. Now, he gets some block shots, and that one under the rim, I'm surprised they didn't call a foul. It wasn't a foul, but I'm surprised they didn't call a foul, and that'll get you in trouble trying to block everything in there. Talking with Sherrell McMillan here on the Inside Carolina postgame. Carolina 97, Central 53, and of course, always Johnny T-shirt and JohnnyT-shirt.com. As Melinda in the chat mentioned, pretty impressive day for North Carolina athletics. Women's soccer goes to Tennessee and upsets them. Well, it's not really upset, but beats Tennessee. Field hockey team wins in Chapel Hill in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I was there, saw that. You're talking about an intense sport. Field hockey is as intense as it gets. And then the volleyball program won, and then it was capped off with North Carolina beating Central. Sherrell, one thing about these type games is you get to sort of see your bench play. And I think that we agree, Rob agrees, that the North Carolina's bench, especially with Trimble out, is a little bit of a question mark, specifically in the front court. But I thought the back court really handled its business off the bench here. Just your overall thoughts there and who stood out for you coming off the bench for Carolina. They scored, I don't have it in front of me, but they scored 30-some points off the bench tonight, which is always a good sign.
The biggest thing to me, the points are great, like you said, but we talked about 0 turnovers. So if you go back to the Radford game, kind of when Hubert Davis turned it over to the reserves, I guess at like the 5-minute mark, it was really sloppy, a bunch of turnovers. they might have scored I think they only scored 2 or 3 points during that entire stretch. Now I think Radford's a much better team than, North Carolina Central, but you expect that those guys who have scholarships to UNC would be able to, just do something more than 2 points and a bunch of turnovers. So it was good to see tonight that they were. Zayden High scored in double figures for the first time in his career. Isaiah Dennis had good minutes. Derek Disson had good minutes. So, I think that's what you're looking for coming into the game. You want to make sure that those guys get plenty of time, that they're able to just get experience on the court. Everybody forgets that Zayden High didn't play last year. And when he was a freshman, he didn't play that much either because he was behind, better players. And then Dixon and Dennis, even though we all think their futures are bright, it's still a little bit different in college. So the fact that they were able to get a bunch of minutes and then be successful will help their confidence, which will help the team moving forward. So it's just a positive sign that there wasn't that slippage like there was in Radford. So to me, that's one of the things I was looking for, to see how those guys would perform. And they played more. I think they came in somewhere around the under 8 timeout, maybe 7, something like that. And they actually extended the lead. I think it was 41 when the starters went out, and they ended up being around +3 during the rest of that time.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the minutes. You talked about that Zayden High. We've banged on him a lot already this season, but 3 for 7 from the field, you'd like to see that better. But 5 for 6 from the free throw line, 11 points in 14 minutes. Dennis Dixon with his 3 threes, hit 16 in 16 minutes, 9 points. And then Jonathan Powell, who I think Jonathan Powell has a specific role and an important role on this team, and that's to sit in that corner and knock down open threes when he's out there, Sherrell. Jaden Young, I think we probably can agree he's not going to get a ton of minutes there. But Powell, I think, is a key part of this bench play for Carolina, especially if you're going to start Bogavac whenever Trimble comes back, however that works. Your thoughts on that aspect of it, of having somebody that can knock down threes off the bench? I think it's important for Carolina.
It is. The thing that I I don't want to say caution, but I think Powell needs to work on is that if his shot's not going in, it affects everything else he does. It affects his defense. It affects his rebounding, his ability to drive. Even in the last game, it affected him at the free throw line because he missed the 2 free throws that he took against Radford tonight. I don't think it was his first 3. I can't remember, but he hit a couple, I believe, in the first half, and then kind of got going. And you saw his free throws go in, and you saw him be more active. You saw him making passes. He didn't let the ball stick. So I think it's really important for him. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat this afternoon. It's really important for him to just kind of be engaged. And I thought, people bag myself on Spatola on the broadcast, but I thought what he said about Stevenson and Powell was like really, really on point. That Hubert Davis is looking for them to be the same guy in every game. And that's 100% true, because when you have Veesaar and you have Wilson, you'll get Trimble back and Kyan Evans kind of doing his distribution thing. You need to know exactly what Stevenson and Powell are going to give you, which is, timely shooting, I would say, defense and energy. And if they can do that, the other guys continue to do what they've been doing, then you have the makings of a really complete team, which I think this is so much more. The roster just fits so much better together than it did last year. And I think it's actually deeper of a team than they had in 23-24. Now, I'm not going to say right now it's going to be as good because that was the number 1 seed, but it's deeper and it's just as balanced, I would say.
Yeah, I thought Spatola made a ton of great points, of course, especially in the second half, about that, what you're talking about, and some other points there. I mean, when you look at this team, they have the potential to be really solid. But the point about Stevenson and Powell being the same guy, the consistency, not going, 1 for 8 and doing nothing else. And that's something, Sherrell, we've talked about for years, is if you're not hitting shots, do something else. We saw guys like Bryce Johnson, even Caleb Love at times, and other players over the course of things. If they're not making shots, they weren't doing anything else. But once players developed and learned that you can affect the game in so many different ways, you're still going to get minutes, and then your shots will eventually fall. Powell was that guy tonight.
And I think Stevenson actually has done that because, he played. I've said it several times, for a program that's been better than Carolina the last couple of years, and a conference that was better than the ACC the last couple of years. He played a lot of minutes, but he came to UNC looking to make his game more well-rounded, and I think he's already done that because at Alabama, if he was missing threes, I don't know if he was really contributing anything else. And tonight and this season, he's already shown me more than I expected by, driving to the rim, the way he plays defense, scrapping for loose balls. He's gotten a couple of really timely offensive rebounds the last couple of games. So I already see that consistency some, I would say, with him. You want a little bit more because there's more there, but he at least is being consistent. I think Powell is getting close, especially with Trimble out. He's going to get more minutes, and maybe he's the type of guy who just needs that, those extra few minutes to play to kind of get into the groove.
Yeah, and we've talked with, Justin Jackson said it a lot. When you're coming in and playing a minute or two, it's tough to get in a groove, like you say. We saw that with a guy that's transferred out and now is playing major minutes elsewhere, hitting a lot of shots. So it takes a while to get used to that sort of aspect of it. To your point on the rebounding, Jaron Stevenson led the team tonight with 3 offensive rebounds. And those are only 3 rebounds he got, but 3 on the offensive glass, and that helps Carolina. Last point, we're talking with Sherrell McMillan here on the Inside Carolina Postgame. Sherrell, I told you there would be a lot of people in here. There's over 500 at 11:30 on North Carolina time. Shout out to the Inside Carolina fan base. Do me a favor, folks. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, do it before you get out of here and hit the like button. And then go to the QR code up there and go to InsideCarolina.com and sign up for your premium membership at On3. We're at the new On3 network, or the new site at the On3 network, InsideCarolina.com. If you want all the latest recruiting information, obviously there was a huge commit today. Sherrell McMillan and the team has been all over it. There was a big official visitor at the game tonight. Sherrell and everybody on the Inside Carolina premium message boards and the premium content that you get if you join the site. It's worth every penny you spend if you're a Carolina fan, and you get it before anybody else does. And you get a text letting you know when big things happen as well. Sherrell, we talked about interior defense. We talked about rim protection before. We've talked about all those things. At least tonight, Carolina with 14 blocks. I think you said that's the most or the third most all time. At any rate, they were protecting the rim, making it hell for Central anywhere close to the rim. Your thoughts on the interior defense?
First off, Tommy, like you said, this is what makes working at IC great and fun. That it's 11:32 on a Friday night before UNC plays a football game and just won by 44, and there's 500 people in here. I mean, that's why we kind of do what we do. That's the cool part. It's so cool. Yeah. So I'm looking at my phone because that's where I have my notes if you can't see it. But the most blocked shots in a game in UNC history, straight from the record book. They had 18 against Stanford in 85, 15 against Northern Kentucky in 2013, 15 at Duke in 2008, and then 14 a whole bunch of other times, 4 other times, including tonight. So this was the third most blocks in a game in school history. That's a lot. I mean, that obviously Carolina's been playing basketball for a long time. They've had shot blockers like Perkins and Worthy and Haywood and Wallace, and on it goes. And this was the third most they've ever had in a game. And it brings home the point one that North Carolina Central again is not super talented relative to an ACC school, but there are many times in the past where a Hubert Davis team didn't do what it was supposed to do. And it goes on to the football side too. How many times have there been games where Carolina was a double-digit favorite, and either they lost the game or it came down to the final minute when it shouldn't have? So you have to give them credit for doing what they're supposed to do. And in this particular instance, what they were supposed to do is use their size and their athleticism as an advantage to make sure that Central couldn't score. And that's what they did. And that's why they ended up with 14 blocks. And to me, again, it just says that the 5-man and the 4-man that Carolina have is such a fresh combination. They haven't had anything like that in some time. They've had multiple really good centers on the roster at the same time. Think about the 2021 roster. What had Day'Ron Sharpe and Walker Kessler and Garrison Brooks and Armando Bacot all together. But they haven't had a 4 like Caleb and a 5 like Veesaar at the same time in a long time. And you're seeing, again, the how that comes to manifest itself is with block shots and lots of dunks. We'll have to get Adrian on here because I'm pretty sure they have to have the record for most dunks, through the first 4 games or whatever, because it feels like every other possession is either a lob from Evans to Wilson or a lob from Wilson to Veesaar or a lob from Evans to Veesaar. Lots of dunks, lots of block shots. They're using their size and doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, 6 of 8 on dunks tonight. Somebody asking in chat how many dunks. So they had 6 dunks. I guess they missed 2 dunks. I know there was one. I think Jaden Young missed one. If my memory serves, I don't remember the other one. Layups 9 for 11. That goes hand in hand. They scored 1.47. We'll get into some Adrian Atkinson numbers. 1.47 points per possession. So a lot of success on the offensive end for North Carolina. They win 97-53 over North Carolina Central. Sherrell, you're right. It is cool to be at Inside Carolina and to be able to do this stuff. I think I've done podcasts 14 or 15, 16 days straight, and it's going to continue all next week. And when we do them live, there's so many people in these chats. There's so many folks on Inside Carolina. On this portion of it, we need to get you all on the Inside Carolina premium message boards. So make sure you join up there for all the great information. Like I mentioned, Sherrell's recruiting stuff is top notch. I'm sure we'll hear plenty about Mingo's visit when that concludes and all of those details. Get in on here, Sherrell. Tell people what they need to expect over the next couple of weeks recruiting wise, because Maximo Adams, thinking of Cayenne Evans commits, and you've got that covered wall to wall. I'm going to put you on the hot spot. Tell us about your coverage and what you've got cooking for North Carolina fans.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Obviously, Mingo is on campus, and already some word, back to that's going well. That kind of stuff. The visits always go well, but I think this might be a little bit more than that. So we'll check on that, and then we'll try to go more in depth with Adams on his recruitment. We usually try to let the dust settle a little bit, because everybody pushes out all their content the day of, and then it's like, okay, on to the next thing. But, again, we like to let things, kind of marinate, and then we go and do something else. So hopefully inside the commitment on Maximo Adams in the next, I would say week to 10 days. And then after that, recruiting takes a little bit of a break as the season gets going. But Hubert Davis will be usually traveling some to see guys, maybe starting to do some work on 2027. And then the holiday tournaments will really start to kick in at the end of the month and then last all the way through December. So those are the next things with high school recruiting. And then, I'd encourage people to just watch a lot of college basketball, because you never know when somebody you watch might be on your team next year. Like I kind of wish I would have watched Colorado State last year, because, I didn't know that Cayenne Evans would be UNC's point guard. So, I would encourage people to just watch a lot of college ball, because when the portal comes, there's going to be so many names, and that's really the only way to kind of at least have a little familiarity with all of them.
Indeed. That's Sherrell McMillan. So we're going to talk about this one day down the road, Sherrell. Best high school player you ever saw in person at one of the holiday tournaments. I used to go to the Broughton Classic, the Holiday Invitational, the Broughton Classic, the Glaxo, the John Wall nowadays.
I can tell you right now, and people aren't going to like the answer. I saw Zion Williamson at the Chick-fil-A tournament in Columbia in 2017. I think he had 58 points, 12 rebounds, and like 10 blocks. I mean, he's playing a team. He's playing a team that had Jalik Felton, who signed with UNC, Jawan Gary, who I think ended up at Alabama amongst other places, and another Division I player. And he was playing with just some dudes like from the Y, and just completely dominated. I haven't seen anything like it, because it was 50-some points, but it was like all dunks. It was like Shaq out there. So at a holiday tournament, I'm pretty sure that's the most impressive one I've seen.
Whew, yeah, I can't top that one, even though I did see Penny Hardaway put up 47 against Sean Bradley, and I saw Rodney Rogers go off in that tournament. I saw Elijah Maman score a lot. Saw Ron Mercer. I mean, back in the day, those tournaments were unbelievable. And I freely admit I do not go to them a lot now, but that might be a fun show we can do one day. Best holiday tournament memories. So, folks, make sure you check out Sherrell's work on Inside Carolina. Stay tuned for more Inside Carolina coverage. The basketball game, of course, tonight. Plenty of coverage from the beat guys on location. We've got football game tomorrow with all that coverage. Day after podcast on Sunday. The basketball show with Rob Harrington, Justin Jackson on Monday, coast to coast on Sunday. I mean, just so much going on at Inside Carolina. Crossover season is legit, and then we are right in the middle of it. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt. Shout out to the 500 plus. Everybody stay safe. Get some sleep. We'll see you this weekend. Thanks, Sherrell.